Good evening, everyone. My name is David Fries. I'm the mayor of Tonganoxie. I'm calling to order this March 18th, 2024 regular meeting of the Tonganoxie City Council. Ms. Huntington, would you note that I am present and call the roll, please?
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Partridge?
Here.
Ms. McCutcheon is absent. Ms. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Donnelly? Here. Mr. Dale?
Here.
Would you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thanks, everyone. Item 2 on the agenda is the approval of minutes we should have 2 minutes to approve, right? Since we missed a meeting. No, we don't.
There would be no minutes for
Yeah,
that meeting.
that's correct.
So moved.
So moved. Is there, thank you, Mr. Donnelly. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 3 is the consent agenda where we look over the review payments from the previous period. Are there any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Old business, we don't have any listed. Did anyone sign up to speak tonight?
No signups, Mayor.
All right, we'll just carry on to new business with ordinance number 1519, consider special event permit and draft ordinance 1519. Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mayor. The city attorney prepared the attached draft ordinance for your consideration. I think this marks at least the 3rd year that the library is hosting a similar event for a private event that allows for consumption of alcohol as part of the bingo and other festivities that are planned. As part of the use of a city property like this, the city council is required to adopt an ordinance temporarily exempting from the city prohibition on alcohol consumption on the premises at the library. We have this event booked for April 4th from 6 to 8 p.m., which is a similar time frame to prior years. And we also checked with the public safety departments to ensure that there were no reports of incidents or issues in prior year events, and they confirmed that there were no such issues to report. Staff do recommend approval of the draft ordinance with the motion in the agenda packet, but we'd be happy to stand for any questions you have.
Council, do you have any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move the city approve ordinance number 1519, allowing the consumption of alcohol on certain public property for limited time and purpose pursuant to KSA 41-719D11 and subsection E for the Wine and Bingo Friends of the Library fundraiser event.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consider approval of storage building purchase for the Tonganoxie Fire Department facility. Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll give a quick introduction and then would like to recognize Deputy Chief Callahan, who's also here tonight, and would be happy to answer any questions you have about this project. As you'll remember from last summer, the development of the 2024 budget included preparations for installation of a portable shed-style building to be added to the fire department fire station campus. This was to replace an older, dilapidated sort of lawn and garden style shed with a more robust facility that could hold equipment that doesn't need to be an air-conditioned and heated space and currently occupies such space in the fire station itself. If you've been to the fire station recently, things are very well organized and everything has a place, but they are, as they grow, adding staff and adding volunteers, needing more and more storage space for various items. And so this will help prolong the expected lifespan of the main facility and give them some much needed flexibility in their storage area. The building specs are a metal sided building with a metal roof, which was preferred by the department. They solicited quotes from 3 vendors, which are listed in the agenda statement. The low bid from the Shed House LLC was deemed to be a satisfactory quote and provision of services, and the price is just over $15,090. Our budget assumptions were for up to $18,000 for this purchase, so we are within that margin and don't have any concerns about those outcomes of the bid. Our funding source, just as a quick reminder, was 50-50 split between the Fire Equipment Fund, which is funded primarily by special assessments for water utility customers that pay each month for fire protection equipment and services, and secondarily by a share of the county sales and use tax, which is eligible for use on city facilities and campus improvements. So the price of that expense would be split down the middle between those 2 funds. Staff would support moving forward with this recommendation, and we're happy to take any questions you might have.
How's that going to be locked up?
That's a good question.
It's got standard locks. I mean, it's got a garage door and a walk door,
Okay,
just standard locks.
okay.
And basically be storing equipment,
Right.
training equipment, excess equipment, nothing of any kind of high value.
Yeah. Just know we had lots of troubles. Chris probably remembers this too, stuff getting stolen out of the rec area.
Well,
But it's
we
a
have the
little different
advantage, we're
area.
there 24 hours a day, every day, so
Yeah.
there is an advantage to that.
Yeah,
And they have to go past us to get to that.
that's true. Thank you. That's
Does the
all.
bid include installation?
Yep.
And is it gonna go on something existing, or do we need to pour a slab or something?
There's been asphalt millings laid down and leveled out, and it's ready, it's a ready site.
Okay. Anything else?
I think it's great that our Public Works folks, per Matt's question, had already prepped the site, and it sounds like they're also gonna help with some of the finishing touches once this is in, so that saves us money.
We have a real good working relationship with
Yeah,
those
that
guys.
sounds great. I'm happy to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to authorize expenditures with the fire station portable building purchase, utilizing the services of Shed House LLC for an amount not to exceed $15,090.25.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Dale. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Moving on to item C, this is wastewater treatment plant expansion project update presented by Daniel Monaco with BG Consultants. Daniel?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Wanted to come talk with you as we're coming down towards the final completion components of the wastewater. We're going to be moving into construction, bidding construction. Wanted to give you an update on timing and the expectations that we can have for that this evening. So we have the information for the KDHE loan. I've had some recent conversations with them. We'll probably, and I'm hoping these are conservative estimates, but up to 60 days, we will have the final SRF document in front of you, which should put us in the mid-May timeframe for that. Our design aspects, we're looking at approximately that same timeframe for submittal to KDHE for their review and approval. Their review and approval process, as we've had constant communication, shouldn't take very long on their side. So we would hope to be projecting the ability to receive their approval early June, initiate then the bidding process, which would require a 30-day advertisement, and that would put us into the July timeframe. That usually, after that point, we would receive the bids, evaluate, bring that to you for an award, and then that would be processed. The construction contractual components can take 15 to 30 days depending on that. So we would bring that agreement to you and be able to initiate work in the August, September timeframe to begin that work. Two things as we've gone through, we're currently looking at two critical aspects of a timing issue just to help operations out there. One is we have included some additional work on the headworks facility. It's a structural component. The aggressive atmosphere out there has created some conditions that need to be rectified. And along with that is to change some of the air handling components of that building, hopefully getting more of that outside so they're not locked in that atmosphere. There's been constant failure and replacement over the time frame, so we're going to try to manipulate that, modify that. What we're hoping, the concern with city staff is to try to make sure we don't have to go through another full winter with that condition. So we've talked about a couple different avenues, and I believe the most efficient avenue would be within the bidding documents is we would actually have the contractor have an early substantial completion date for that work. So that would be in fixed operational before the winter hits this year. So we'd be looking in that November timeframe to have that completed as part of the project. It's part of the overall, but we would just tell them, hey, you've got to move forward with this part of it quicker. The other pathway is current operations out there at the wastewater treatment plant. They have a winter shutdown of their digester system. So they drop all that, they get all that out because the current situation is it freezes up. So the staff operates their process over a 3+ month period of not wasting, and that's the time that we would be utilizing to get that work done, both inside and the blower mechanisms that would operate the new system. So we'll have a similar condition with that within the bidding to move that forward, so we'd be substantially complete by February 1 of '25 with those components, so that once that is done and tested, everything's ready to go, then the system can come back online. The overall construction aspect, it should take 12 to 15 months. We probably give them 15 months, hoping that we could get done in 12, but we'd be looking towards the end of '25 probably for all construction activities. I guess with that, is there any questions or things that I can help address?
I'm curious, as on the digester, in this phase, what are the kind of specific improvements we're doing to it?
For the digester? Mm-hmm. The current system has an aeration system it's mechanical at the top, and it throws air by rotating.
If I remember right, it's open, it's like totally open on the top, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah,
it
is it still gonna be?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what's different after this phase is complete that's gonna?
What we're going to do, instead of using mechanical system that is less efficient overall, power to oxygen transfer rate, we're going to replace that with what's called a diffused air system. So we'll have mechanical blowers that will be providing via piping that will go up and inside, and then have diffuser racks, grids inside of that. So now the air comes from the bottom and can transfer up through.
Will they still have to shut down during the winter?
No, sir.
Oh, that's good, okay.
So I'm confused a little bit on the timeline, because last March, when we had our annual budget retreat, we talked in depth about the water plant. And I remember remarking that whoever planned this out many, many years ago really planned for growth in our city. And that growth has been happening for a long time, including in the industrial area. But we were talking about this a year ago. And so I thought that we would really be like this spring and this summer completing these projects. And so now, one of the dates you mentioned was February of '25. I just want to make sure that you are feeling the same urgency we are with the growth in the city and the growth in the industrial park to move this process along at every stage, feeling the same urgency that we feel for the infrastructure for our community, to keep with the same pace with the water system that we are with every other aspect of the community.
Yes, and I do, and I understand that. And yes, I do have that. I would love to get this finished, and that's what we're proposing within this next 60 days. Part of what we have been trying to work with on this system is the phosphorus component will become a bigger issue for the city. And part of that is driven by the industrial, and they're still working through some of their kinks at their plant as well. So in overall capacity to address, do we think we're going to get behind? No, I don't believe that we'll get behind the directions of the industrial, the major industrial contributor. Their schedules, even when they were full online with their first 2 lines, would put us at about 85% capacity of the current plant. And that projection, I know, I don't know their exact date, but I know it's been brought back as well. But yes, I fully understand and appreciate that urgency as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening, I was like, wait, is this a rerun? Are we having the same discussion again? And those dates keep sounding farther and farther away.
I
So
understand that.
thank you for understanding our urgency.
Yes, ma'am.
Council, do you have anything more? No. Okay. Thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you for coming by.
Look forward the next time we'll have some documents in front of you. So
That sounds good.
have a good evening. Thank you.
Okay, item D, consider approval of the Public Works mower equipment replacement. Mr. Porter?
Thank you, Mayor. Included in our 2024 adopted budget was allocation of funds for replacement of one of the 2 zero-turn mowers that our Public Works full-time and seasonal staff utilize to help mow properties across the city, ranging from city parks to utility properties and right-of-way and adjacent to city buildings and other areas. The 2014 Skag mower is the mower we're proposing to replace, and included in this quote, in the quotes you see collected for this evening, are trade-ins of that equipment for each of the vendors. The Skag mower, as detailed last summer, has had some increased maintenance issues and reliability issues. I think over the past 2 years in particular, has been really disappointing to see the amount of time it's spent needing to be replaced. And so we are budgeting from the Water Capital Fund and the Sewer Capital Fund, because the utility mowing is such a primary use of this equipment, to make this purchase. We collected quotes for a 60-inch zero-turn mower with the trade-in referenced earlier. And based on the bids, you can see that the Kubota machine from McConnell Machinery Company in Lawrence was actually the low bid by $5. In reference to the bid components, never flat tires or the rubber tires that don't have air in them that can't be flattened by sharp objects were not included in the Kubota quote, and they were included in the other 2 quotes. And Public Works has ascertained that to purchase those secondarily would be multiple hundreds dollars more. And so staff do recommend going with the bid collected from Heritage Tractor in Lawrence from the John Deere implement instead of the low bid by the $5 value. These bid packages from different providers aren't always exactly apples to apples, and that was a consideration that Ken Heskett felt very strongly would benefit us in the long run, as they mow in some pretty rough area with our finished mowers like this. No budget impact to a significant level. We did budget a little less than $14,400. We were anticipating closer to $13,000 for this purchase. However, the $1,400 is, in these two funds, is more than accommodated with the savings from our loader equipment. That was a much more significant level of savings on that purchase for equipment earlier in 2024. So these two funding sources both have more than sufficient capacity to make this purchase at the $14,400 level, as quoted. So unless you have any other questions, we'd appreciate a motion to approve this purchase and the trade-in of the old Skag. Quite the name.
Council, do you have any questions? If not, I'd be looking for a motion.
I'd make a motion, we authorize the purchase of John Deere Z994R diesel zero-turn mower from Heritage Tractor for amount not to exceed $14,400.76, along with the trade-in of the city's 2014 Skag mower.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Mr. Dale on that one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item E is the consideration of the approval of 2024 street maintenance plan and draft request for proposals. Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in the agenda packet are some details about the proposed street maintenance plan for street maintenance activities to be contracted out later this year. If you'll remember, in most years, we, in February, March, or April, go through a bidding process where we issue an RFP to interested vendors, collect those quotes, and then consider and award the bids for the work. We've got an update coming in the financial report that we'll share with you in a few minutes about the history of our street maintenance, but what we're here for tonight is to really focus on the areas of focus for this summer's work. And Mr. Heskett, our Public Works Director, has been hard at work over the last several months, especially in the last several weeks, assessing what areas of our roadway and curb and gutter areas in our infrastructure network have shown the biggest level of decay and are in need of attention. That attention, as you know, can range from complete mill and overlay treatment. Sometimes we use chip seal treatments. Sometimes we have used other products like microsurfacing or asphalt rejuvenation oil treatment. So there's a wide range of activities that we can consider and contemplate using, although we do seem to have our favorites. Looking at what we're asking for tonight are two things: the areas of focus, which I'll highlight in just a second, and then the schedule that you can see illustrated on the screen at the bottom of the page there for the RFP. If we issue the RFP later this week, based on our normal timeline, we would have responses due by April 11th, which would give staff a few days to review those responses, prepare and agree upon draft contract terms with the winning vendor, and then come back to the City Council as early as April 15th, which is a quick turnaround, but we like to get in as early as possible to help us be competitive, to have the work completed early in the summer instead of after school starts. We've even finished some projects up in October in some years, and we'd like to avoid coming in at the end of the line to the extent possible with this schedule. Listed there below as well are some standard terms, and we don't see any major changes from prior years. One thing that I will illustrate, if you could go to the next page, Lindsay. In prior years, you'll probably recall too that our city staff have coordinated separate bids in some cases for curb replacement and mill and overlay or other road surface treatment. What Kent is proposing this year, and I do agree with this line of thinking, is because some of the areas that are going to be touched in that way are the same area, to avoid having to coordinate those contractors, we feel it would be better to do one bid and have that subbed out through the contractor that's awarded the project as a whole. That's commonplace in other communities that do major street overhaul work or major street maintenance, and we don't feel like bundling the two will cause us to have negative bid outcomes, like in some cases in other work. So that is a twist on our normal manner of approach, but I think it does stand to simplify things and consolidate our work and our focus. I won't focus tonight on the budget impact. One reason we don't do that at this point is to sort of give vendors an inside look at what we hope to pay or anticipate paying. So we're going to avoid a lot of focus on that, and we'll obviously focus a lot more on that on April 15th. So if you could scroll to the next page, Lindsay, thank you. So illustrated on this page is an area of curb replacement in Stone Creek subdivision. We'll talk on the next map about the mill and overlay, but just to highlight, the area that is going to have mill and overlay treatment is a larger area, but the area highlighted here in blue are the areas with deteriorating curbs. You'll remember that the most recent major curb project we did was in Willow Point subdivision in Jackson Heights. And some of our assessment of the areas of decay that seem to decay a lot quicker than others is that it could be a bad batch of concrete, it could have been weather conditions when it was installed, it could be a variety of things, ranging all the way down to the propensity of residents and their visitors to park heavy equipment on the curb regularly or at a time when that seems to negatively impact those conditions, because you can sometimes see damage to the curb from repetitive heavy vehicle parking in particular. So this is the main area identified for major curb work in the proposed work for this summer. You can see our pocket park, just for reference, to give everybody an idea of where we are. The pocket park in Stone Creek subdivision, is right here. So it's the road out in front of it, moving up to Stone Creek Drive, moving south on Hidden Valley Drive, and then part of High Prairie Place and all of Willow Bend Drive. So looking at our next map for a more comprehensive picture, you can see listed here the area of mill and overlay treatment. And if you remember from prior years, and we'll look at that, like I said, in the financial report in a little more detail, we've focused efforts on Jackson Heights subdivision and last year, the main thoroughfares to get into Stone Creek subdivision, including Stone Creek Drive. So this year, what is contemplated in addition is the finishing of mill and overlay treatment for the cul-de-sac streets extending west of Stone Creek Drive, the area that was shown in highlight on the last map for curb replacement, and then the area along Rock Creek Drive and Valley View Drive. If you've driven those areas, you'll notice it isn't deteriorating rapidly in every part, but in segments or in areas where there's been heavier use or heavier issues, you do notice those spider web cracking, alligator cracking they call it, and other conditions that warrant this kind of a treatment like mill and overlay. This is a major area and a pretty significant area if you count up the linear lane miles that are included in the square feet and square yards. Finally, on the next area of focus, and these are all proposed as one bid without add alternate at this point. This is in South Park subdivision, and you can see coming just south of the traffic signal at Stone Creek in 2440, Jackson Drive, cul-de-sacs north of Jackson Drive, and then a portion of Joel's Drive and a cul-de-sac at the intersection of Joel's and I believe that's Rawlings. Last year, if you remember the street map and the work we did focus on South Park Drive and Joel's, Rawlings, and other areas to the south and west in this subdivision. And so what Mr. Heskett sort of describes this as is finishing out the areas that we haven't touched and maintained recently in the Stone Creek and in the South Park subdivisions that otherwise have been addressed either last year or within the last 3 to 4 years in that area. At this point, like I mentioned, we're not contemplating doing an add alternate to give us flexibility in doing some or all of a project that's bid. What Mr. Heskett has otherwise indicated is that either staff would self-perform small areas in need of a fix or a curb replacement or something like that, or if there is significant budgetary savings, we would have enough time by late April to come back and bid out either microsurfacing work or asphalt rejuvenation or some other treatment that goes a little further, is a little less cost intensive, and would let us utilize that funding from the Special Highway Fund fully and make the biggest difference we can in streets. So that is, I think, all we have for that information item. We would appreciate a motion to authorize staff to release the RFP or discussion or changes that you would like to see or reconsideration of the areas of work. But happy to take your questions, feedback, or other comments if you'd like.
Any questions, council?
All right, I'll move that we authorize the advertisement of the proposed 2024 street maintenance project RFP.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dan. A lot of stuff on your plate tonight.
Mayor, if I could just add a quick comment on that item, and thank you again for the continued support to make these infrastructure improvements. But I do want to recognize Mr. Heskett and our entire Public Works Department and kind of go back. If some of these areas or streets look familiar, not so long ago, the city had to solely depend on that special highway fund and whatever the limitations of revenue available, and had to really make some tough decisions about what kind of conditions streets had to get into before they could be addressed here and how to best prioritize that. But I want to remind us that for those of you that were on the council back in 2018, kudos to you for approving it. But Mr. Heskett proposed doing something that was fairly new to the city at the time, and it was using a variety of products that were intended to preserve the current condition of the asphalt rejuvenation type products. And so in 2018, before the special sales tax really had enough time to generate revenue to go do additional things, I think that innovative approach of using those asphalt rejuvenation products that are intended to extend the life of the existing surface for 3 to 5 years, and here we are 6 years later saying, okay, now it's time we can go address those streets. The conditions weren't deplorable in any sense of the word, but it allowed us enough time to go address things that needed to be prioritized in advance, and now puts us in a better position where the city's not as stressed for those funds to go out and do these projects. And so I just want to be able to remind everybody of that, and again, thank Mr. Heskett for his heady leadership when it comes to how to best divvy up these funds. So thank you for the time.
Thanks, George. It's my understanding we're not going to consider item F tonight.
Correct. We're addressing this item so that we can be a little more thorough with our approach and ask our pool manager to attend, if possible, the next meeting and discuss the recommendations that are being made.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm getting old. Can't remember if we voted on E or not. We did? Great. That moves us on to the city manager agenda. George?
I think we only have one item tonight, and that's the financial report, and I'll ask Mr. Porter to continue to carry all the water.
Thanks, George. Thank you, Mayor. So our February financial report is not terribly lengthy, and I won't spend too long walking through it tonight, but we do have, I think, an interesting section about street maintenance funding and a look back at what George just talked through, the increased level of investment and the wide variety of both area and treatments that we've been able to apply with the help of that infrastructure sales tax funding. But just in a general sense, working through the entirety of the executive summary, we're 16% through our fiscal year at the end of February. We had an extra day in February this year with a leap year. Our expenditure and revenue summaries are shown on page 2 and 3 of the financial report. And I just want to highlight real briefly that on those, we are standing at 34% of revenues for the year in the general fund, which is a little more than 2% pace ahead of last year at the same time. So revenues have been solid, and that's a combination of property tax and sales tax. In the utility funds, water and sewer, we're standing at just over 11 and just over 12% revenue growth. And in later financial reports this year, we do anticipate providing a more detailed revenue and expenditure pace breakout with our utilities, which have grown thanks to growth in the city and businesses and residences, as well as our industrial park customers that are beginning to open up operations like we heard from Mr. Monaco earlier tonight. In terms of expenditures to date, we're at 35% increase from the prior year in the general fund. That seems very significant and concerning. The biggest reason is we had a 3 pay period month in the month of February with the way the calendar fell, and when the payment for payroll hit the books. So we are ahead of pace, basically 1/26th of the way through our payrolls this fiscal year. So there is nothing of concern in that result, but it does look like an aberration and a jump from the from last year's result to this year's result in expenditures in the general fund. Our utility funds, water is at 8% growth, again, less than the growth in revenue by a couple percent, and sewer is at 30% growth, but that involves some contribution made towards the purchase of the loader equipment earlier this year. So there's justification for that differential from the prior year. In ARPA funds, we do still maintain $629,783. We are utilizing those progressively as the design work at the sewer plant continues, but we're evaluating also at the same time whether we need to contemplate making some adjustment in the planned use of those funds, depending on the interpretation of the final rule for the ARPA funding, and whether obligated means committed to a contract, like our contract with BG for that work. So we'll have an answer for that well in advance of the time when we need to utilize those funds or not. No budget amendments to propose or to reference at this point. So if we'll move forward in the report, and I'll advance on the screen here. Sales tax, we were delayed in February, and so even with one extra day, the state did not get us our funds by the end of the month, so those came through in early March. So we'll report in more detail on those. I do believe the end of March, we are looking at getting it on time, which would be a welcome departure from normal. Budget initiatives, I just highlighted on our list of 2024 budget initiatives, the fire station storage building. I know the fire department's excited to move ahead with that project, and we've got a few more on this list that we'll be addressing in the upcoming several meetings. Our spring retreat this coming weekend actually is the next step in our budget development timeline, so we'll be looking ahead already at next year in more detail at that forum and the upcoming dates. Starting in May at City Council CMIP work session and through the months of June, July, and August as well. Moving ahead into the report, this is the area of focus that we wanted to highlight in a little more detail. We went back and evaluated back to 2014, which is sometimes a struggle with the technology and file saving practices as short as 9 years ago or 10 years ago, which seems amazing. But we evaluated as well as we could, both the overall spending level on road maintenance, as well as our areas of focus and treatment methods. We also looked at, it was interesting to contemplate in those early years of this 10-year window, the city was debt financing some maintenance activities from prior years that weren't able to be afforded with cash payment and needed to be stretched out and repaid over time. So that concluded about 5 years ago, but it's definitely an indication of the fiscal health of the city and the flexibility granted to the city to invest in these important infrastructures expenses by utilizing cash from a sales tax similar to that. If you'll remember, the infrastructure sales tax used to be funding the water park improvements when it was rehabbed and reopened as a new expanded water park. And so in 2017, which you can see illustrated on the graph at the bottom of this page, the 2017, the 3/8 sales tax was renewed for another 20 years. And you can see immediately in 2018, the increased investment in street maintenance services for the city as a whole on an annual basis. A quick highlight of, in real dollars, what that difference is. On average, from 2014 to 2017, the city spent about $114,000 a year on road maintenance, and that includes the highs and the lows. Since then, through 2023, the average jumped up to almost $361,000. So more than doubled the investment level in these roads, and I think that's reflective in the condition of our streets and our curbs, especially in the areas that have had the most focus in recent years. So, like George mentioned, kudos to the city council at the time and to the voters at the time for making those choices that allowed this level of investment to step up and meet the needs of our infrastructure. And I apologize, these pictures are really small, so on the big screen they're hard to see, but hopefully in your packet they're a little more visible. Illustrated here, you can see the maps of the project areas in 2023. We talked about those in the last item with the street maintenance plan, Stone Creek Drive, and a lot of the roads in the Urban Hess Business Park area, as well as parts of the main thoroughfare of Rawlings and South Park Drive, and then as well, city performed work in the Church Street, north of 4th Street, up to 3rd corridor, and a resurfacing temporary fix over the 4th Street Bridge. That was all mill and overlay work, and I won't go through every year, but I just wanted to highlight a few points. 2022, mill and overlay and, curb replacement in Willow Point subdivision, just east of Tonganoxie Drive, the entire circle of that subdivision, as well as spot fixes in Ridge Circle near the, to the southwest of the grocery store, and then microsurfacing reapplication along May when the year prior, along Main Street in May when the year prior's treatment did not perform adequately. Moving back to 2021, you can see that we highlighted the areas of focus, and so some of those included from Pleasant to the railroad right-of-way addition, as well as West Washington Street, west of 2440. As well, in addition to that, the microsurfacing we mentioned in North Star subdivision, Main Street, and Pleasant, and Main, of course, being redone the next year. Moving back to 2020, mill and overlay services essentially east of 2440 and west of the railroad right-of-way, the old railroad right-of-way, as well as a couple other areas of repair, parallel road on the north boundary of the city limits, east of Tonganoxie Drive, and, that's 4th Street from the city shop turn out to the eastern city limits along 4th Street. So you can see the variety just in a couple years of the areas we've touched and maintained, but skipping back through 2019, back to 2018, you can see highlighted in the map on 2018 at the bottom, you can see highlighted the areas we're addressing in mill and overlay services this summer are areas that receive that asphalt rejuvenation, both north and south of the signal at 2440 and Stone Creek Drive. So it's kind of an interesting picture to show looking back over multiple years like this. And you can see at the bottom of this page, before 2017, we really struggled to even identify where some of the work took place and what it entailed. But I think the quality and the quantity of street maintenance activities and the investment in it took a huge step up after 2017, and we've continued really strong for 7 years in making those increased investments. Are there any questions about that component of the report, or comments or areas of interest to any of you? Okay.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yep, that's a great summary of the street improvements. The complaints are, I never hear anybody complain about our streets anymore. And it used to be a huge, huge topic of conversation.
That's great. The remainder of the financial report includes a revenue summary by fund and by subcategory of type of revenue, and then an expenditure summary by fund and by category of expense. I don't have any other highlights to point out for this monthly report, but as always, happy to take any questions or feedback you have or ideas for areas of focus in future reports.
Any questions for Mr. Porter?
Did I hear you right to say we're 2% over budget on the revenues so far this year?
In the general fund, we're 2% ahead of last year. We're well ahead of last year in pace of the year compared to pace of collection, because so much of the general fund is property tax, and we have two main distributions. But we are ahead of last year's pace and on track with budget.
You probably got your second month's sales tax by now, yeah?
Yes, it came in early March.
Are we still ahead of last year, year-to-date revenue, but below budget?
Just slightly, yes.
Okay.
Just
Do we,
slightly.
any concern if that continues that we're gonna need to make a budget amendment?
No,
Okay.
not on the current pace, not at all.
Okay.
It's
Anyone
nice
else?
for a change to be slightly below the
I know, it's
projection.
unusual for you, Dan, so I was just
Well-
making sure.
We're taking your feedback as well as we can.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dan. Mr. Prakovich, do you have anything more?
No additional items, Mayor, but thank you.
Okay. Item H, the city attorney agenda.
No items, Mayor.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem agenda,
No items tonight.
city council agenda. And mayor agenda, I have an executive session, if you could read that, Laura Lee.
Yes, I'm trying to
Ms.
figure out the
Stevens?
exact time. Does everyone agree it's 7:46?
Yeah.
All right. I move that the city council recess into executive session to obtain legal advice related to correspondence received from Unilock Chicago, Inc. pertaining to the real estate contract of sale between the city Unilock pursuant to the attorney-client consultation exception, KSA 75-4319B2. The executive session will include the city attorney, city manager, and the assistant city manager. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers at 8:22.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Partridge. All in favor, say aye.
Sorry, before we vote, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on the time. Are we doing a 30-minute or?
25.
25 would be 10 minutes less than that. So 8:12.
Oh, 8:12. Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
8:12. I don't know what.
I'll still second.
Okay, still second. 8:12.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're in executive session. We are returning to open meeting. Just let the record show that no binding action was taken in the executive session. I have nothing more except to thank all the people who did the St. Patrick's parade. That was a lot of
Yes.
work.
It was a great parade.
It's good. Jake,
I move to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. See you in a couple weeks.